Hello everyone, my name is Arash. In today's video, I'm going to go through the details of how I plan my flights around the world in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. This method that I'm going to explain to you is basically for entertainment purposes only. I don't think this is necessary to describe, but because internet sometimes can be strange, so I feel like I have to include this right at the beginning, that if you are trying to learn how to flight plan for real life, you need to learn that in a flight school. Again, this is for simulation purposes only. And the reason that I'm making this video is because I've received a lot of requests during my live streams on Twitch. By the way, if you want to join my Twitch channel, you can find the address at the bottom of the screen and also in the description of this video. I thought put all of these details in one video, so if anyone has any questions, they can refer to it and make their flight plan to explore the world in the virtual world of Microsoft Flight Simulator or any other simulator software out there. It's not necessarily limited to Microsoft Flight Simulator. So there are a number of tools that I'm using for this planning. And throughout this video, you will realize why I'm using different tools. First, we need to know approximately where we are going to fly. By that, I mean our destination, our departure, and general path that we are going to take. So for this video, I decided to go by this example. Let's say we want to fly from London to Paris. There are a number of different locations for sightseeing. We want to make the most out of our flight. For the details of this flight, we are going to use a website, which is SkyVector. I'm going to switch to that tab again, but for now, I wanted to show you my custom Google map that I have on this tab here. And I will get back to this after we create the flight plan and then file it. So going to the SkyVector, again, the website is skyvector.com. You can find the link in the description of this video. So we have London up here and Paris down here. Now, if I zoom in, we are going to take off from London Heathrow Airport. And throughout this flight planning, I'm going to put my emphasis on flying without GPS. Let's say we don't want to use GPS because, let's face it, GPS is just too easy and sometimes it gets boring. If you try to follow the magenta line on your GPS unit and basically the plane flies by itself, you don't have to do anything. What's the exciting thing about it? We want to make it a little bit more advanced, make it more challenging for the fun of it. I will basically go through the details of planning this route using older nav equipments, that is to say VOR and NDBs. If you don't know what those are, that would be described in another video, but this video is specifically about flight planning. To start our flight, I'm going to choose London Heathrow, as I mentioned. We're going to right click on the airport and I click on plan. It'll add the airport to the departure. Or you could just type the ICAO code of the airport if you know it already, and it'll just automatically select the airport on the map and basically brings it to the center. But I'm gonna just use the map itself, assuming that we don't know the ICAO codes of airports and the VOR on the map. The first thing I'm gonna do is choose the closest VOR to our departure airport. Why? Because that would be our reference point. We want to have an easy navigation to our next waypoint. The closest VOR is this station right here. As you can see, the compass of VOR, that's the symbol of VOR, right? Lima Oscar November. I'm gonna right click on it and you can see that it's already here as one of the choices. I'm gonna click on plan and it adds it to my flight plan. Now from here, we are going to aim for the center of the city. That's where most of the custom sceneries are located in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I will choose this point because I want to have a visual reference as well on the ground, so I can find and verify my location once we get there. So I will right click here and create a custom waypoint. And that is just using the coordinates of this location. It says GPS, but you don't have to use GPS to have this custom waypoint added to your flight plan. It's just the coordinates. And when you add it, you can see that it draws a line from the VOR station to this custom waypoint that is a direct path from London VOR to this coordinate, just latitude and longitude. So from here, we are going to fly all the way to London City Airport. We can use the location of this airport as our waypoint, either the airport itself or a nav aid instrument close to the airport. I highly recommend to not use the airport itself as your waypoint, because in the next step that can cause some issues. If there is no nav aids close to the airport, instead of right clicking and adding the airport as the waypoint, I recommend you to use just the location, the coordinates of the airport, not the ICAO code of it. Again, you will see why this will cause an issue later on. So for this case though, I'm going to use London City NDB station as my next waypoint. So after takeoff, we are going to take radial 085 for 13 nautical miles until we reach to this custom waypoint, the river here, and then take heading 091 for 7 nautical miles all the way to this NDB station. By this point, we've already had our sightseeing, and we are good to continue our flight towards Paris. So along our way, we are going to use as much VOR as possible. Of course, we don't want them to be too close, but if it's possible, let's keep them like between 30 to 50 nautical miles at most, because usually that's the average range of every VOR in this virtual world. That's how it is in real life as well, but sometimes the VORs have unpredictable range in the simulator. So if it's your first time flying in that path, it's better to be safe and keep the distances shorter as much as it's possible. We should have other visual reference points on the ground for navigation, but we have plenty of VOR stations, so we can choose, like for example this one, Delta Echo Tango, and then from here you will fly toward this VOR station. Again, just right clicking on every VOR that we are going to fly towards to and add it to our flight plan. The next one, I would choose Alpha Bravo Bravo here, which also is next to this airport right here, so we can, while we are flying toward the VOR, we can actually see this airport and have a visual clue on the ground that, yeah, okay, we are arriving there, so we are close and we can be ready for the next leg of the flight. So from here, we are going to fly toward this VOR, again 44 nautical miles, that's a good range. And then the next one, I would choose this station here. We are very close to Paris by this point, right? Now from here, I will choose to, let's say, go to this point, again assuming that we know approximately like where we want to fly to in the city, like where the custom sceneries are located. We want to fly around the particular areas, but let's say we want to go here, right? Also there's this river here, and that helps us to find our location. So we fly again, I'm going to make a custom waypoint here from this VOR, so we know that we are going to fly for 13 nautical miles from this station using radial 148, and then we know by just looking at the ground that we are already there because we are going to cross that river, right? And then from here we are going to fly toward the center of Paris. I'm going to add another custom waypoint. We know that we just follow this direction 119 degrees for 7 nautical miles to the center, and then we will have a lot of sightseeing to do. By this point, we should be done by our flight, and I'm going to choose a VOR station close to our destination airport, which is Papa Golf Sierra here. I'll add it to the flight plan, and that's pretty much it. All we need to do is just choosing a destination airport as the final point, and that closes the whole path. So we have departure, London Heathrow, destination Paris Charles de Gaulle, and this is our flight plan. This is the whole picture. I just want to add something here that doesn't happen for our flight from London to Paris, but sometimes it happens around the world, depending on where you're flying. For example, this is north of India that I'm going to show you just as an example. When you're selecting two VORs, instead of basically creating a path between the two VORs as a direct line, SkyVector adds the path or leg using the standard airways. For example, we have this VOR here. I'm going to add a VOR at Delhi. See what happens if I add that. It adds the path using this airway that is standard for this part of the world for flying from this point to this point apparently. If you look at the flight plan up here, you can see that the flight is from Juliet Papa via Romeo 218 to Delta Papa November. So this is added automatically, and of course it adds a lot of time and distance to our flight. Sometimes it can be actually critical if you're doing a long flight and these like longer paths causes to burn a lot more fuel, so you might actually run out of fuel. Again, because this is just for simulation, right? We want to explore the parts that we have selected, not necessarily follow the standard procedures that are happening in real life, right? So in those cases, we want to get rid of this addition and have a direct line from this VOR to this VOR. How do we do that? It's so easy. You just double click on the via path here, right? The airway. And then just delete it and then hit tab and done. It makes the path between these two VORs using a direct line instead of the standard airway. Going back to the main example then. Now, I want to add this very important information as well, that although SkyVector is a free tool, but you have to keep in mind that this tool is being used in real life as well. So never ever try to file your flight plan using this tool. That's actually illegal. It's very important. So we only use it just for the planning, right? And you might ask, well, why do you use it? Why don't you use other tools? That's because SkyVector has the VFR maps of the entire world. In the United States, you can see that it's more extensive. Other parts of the world doesn't have enough details, but if you're flying around mountainous areas, for example the Alps, it becomes very useful. Like the topography information on this on these maps are so good that makes them a great tool for VFR planning. That's why we are using it for flight planning, but we should never ever file this plan. We are going to use a different tool for filing our flight plan. Again, this is for entertainment purposes. So when I say file our flight plan, it's going to be for our own record, and also there are going to be some benefits that I'm going to show you. Now that we have our flight plan here, we are going to switch to the next tool, which is called SimBrief. Usually for VFR planning, you don't need this, but there are benefits in using this service. I'll show you why. I recommend it. So when you go to simbrief.com, assuming that you have already registered for an account, you go to dispatch and dispatch system, right? It brings you to this page, and then you can create a new flight here. So you click on this. I'm not going to describe every detail on this page, but I will show you how to quickly file your flight plan using this very useful website. First, we are going to put our airline. This is just a private flight, I would say, PVT. Again, this is for entertainment. And this is the important part. So departure is going to be the ICAO code of your airport. I'm going to just copy paste it here because I'm lazy. And then the destination or arrival point. It adds an alternate location. I'm not going to touch that for now. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That's not the point. I'm just showing you how to do the general flight planning. I will choose the unit as pounds. You can just keep it as a kilogram if you prefer. To airframe, I have my Cessna 172 added here. You can choose other aircrafts or open the aircraft editor. Again, another video for these details. Now, the important part here is that it will generate a route for you by default based on real life routes, or like popular routes, I should say. But we've already created our own flight plan. So what do? We go back to SkyVector. We will copy all of these waypoints and paste it here. And click on Analyze Route. Boom, right there. Everything is there. So creating all of those like custom waypoints, especially when you're doing sightseeing around a city, or let's say around a mountainous area, that's not gonna be really easy in SimBrief. But if you use those custom waypoints using coordinates, all of it comes here and you can verify it down here. That being said, I need to mention a couple of points here. Sometimes, for example, if you're not in the US or Europe, in other parts of the world, you will find some waypoints that are not going to show up on this map. The reason for that is because SimBrief uses Jeppesen database, and sometimes they don't match with what you will see on SkyVector. In those cases, you will get like an error message down here. It says, for example, this particular waypoint is not valid. If you see that kind of message, either delete that waypoint, for example, that VOR station or NDB station, or instead of using that code, use the coordinates of that nav aid equipment on the ground. For example, let's say Lima Charlie Yankee NDB station didn't exist in SimBrief's database. In that case, we come back to our SkyVector map, we click on that waypoint, right? And then we will choose the coordinate of this station. It replaces the ICAO code of NDB by the coordinates of it. If you got an error that, for example, that the particular code is not valid in SimBrief, in this case, that's not a problem. So I'm gonna just click on it and return back to the actual code. Also, sometimes there are, especially it happens a lot with NDB stations, that their codes are repeated in other parts of the world. For example, you will come down here and you will see that like your flight is going normally, everything, and then from this point, this black line goes like thousands of nautical miles somewhere else and then comes back here and to the actual flight plan. So that's why you have to verify it. In that case, again, do the same thing. Go to the SkyVector map, either delete that waypoint or replace it with the coordinates of that nav aid instrument. Again, this happened because they use different databases, right? They are not connected to the same source. That's why you will see these kind of discrepancies. It's rare, but I have experienced this problem over the course of many flights that I've done. So just keep that in mind. It's very easy to fix, because we want to keep our flight plan as we've already done it in SkyVector, because of course we want to have those custom waypoints, and or if it's a mountainous area and we are doing VFR flying around those areas, it's very important to stick to our original flight plan, not just getting lost based on whatever that shows up here. Anyway, let's see, like everything looks good right now, right? So we can actually save our flight plan. So this is important. Save it, right? Flight saved, close. Now, the next important thing is to generate OFP. If you're asking what OFP is, that's another video again, that's going to be a long video by itself. Let's assume that you know what OFP is. So you're going to generate OFP and it's done. All of the details of OFP is here. You can download it as a PDF file or or whatever. Just keep it here. But that's not the point that I'm showing you. what I want to show you is that I do this particularly to download 2 files here. This is one of the useful features of this website SimBrief, that in addition to your OFP, it also generates these files for you for different applications, including Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. So we can download this file, this PLN file, right? And another file that I want to download is Google Earth KML. I will show you why, right? So download. So we have 2 files. Of course, if you have used Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, you know what PLN files are. And then you might ask, well, I thought you don't want to use GPS. Why do you need a PLN file? For 2 reasons. One, if you're new in using VOR or just VFR flights, and you want to have a backup plan while you're flying, the best way to do it is load this flight plan in your flight. When you have the home page open this PLN file into your Microsoft Flight Sim application. So while you're flying and try to navigate your way around using VOR, NDB, or just VFR flying, you can have the GPS unit of your aircraft on as well and verify the results of your navigation until you have enough confidence to completely ignore the GPS unit and just rely on older instruments or VFR. Also, the second useful case for this file is that, let's say you want to share it with your friends who are going to fly with you. So you can just send them this flight plan to them and they can load it up, fly with you. Or if, let's say, somebody wants to join mid-flight, if you have already loaded this PLN file, if they click on your aircraft on the homepage map, they can spawn next to you with the flight plan loaded to their GPS unit. So they can just fly alongside you without any problem. Now, moving on to the next file while downloading the Google Earth KML. Remember I showed you my custom Google map here? You might ask what's custom Google map? That's another video, but anyone can have a custom Google map for themselves and add elements to it. It's tied to your Google account. If you guys have any questions about that, I can make another video to explain this, how to do it. But you can see I have like some of my flights showing up here that I've done in the past. So it basically records everything for you for your account. You can share this to other people if you like to, or just keep it private. Compared to SkyVector, which is for aviation, it doesn't have other information added here. You can bring the same flight plan to Google Map, so you have all of these extra details about the locations that you're flying into, like the small towns, the name of the lakes, for example, or rivers, etc., all being here, right? That can be useful if you're just exploring the world in your simulator. So you can just easily go to add layer here and click on import, select a file, and here you will select that KML file that you downloaded from SimBrief, right? It uploads it and boom, it's right here with all of the waypoints that you created in SkyVector, right? All of them are here. And I don't know why, but sometimes it adds some extra length to the end of the flight, or sometimes to the beginning of the flight. It's easy to fix it. You can just edit it like this, so you get rid of that extra path that it adds it. I don't know why it does that. It's kind of weird, but it's easy to fix, so I don't care, to be honest. And that's it. You can see where you're going to fly, small towns or rivers or whatever that you're flying above them, all the way to your destination. So that is one use case for the KML file that we downloaded. The other useful case for it is our next tool that is very, very useful, and it's windy.com website. This is another tool that a lot of people actually use it in real life for their flights, for surfing, for any sort of outdoor activity, basically. You can upload it here by going to this menu up here, click on upload KML and choose a file, select that KML file, open, and boom, the entire flight path is here. So now you can look at the weather condition around the area that you're going to fly to. For example, cloud coverage, precipitation, any sort of like icing condition, or one of the important things is wind, right? So you can see the wind direction and speed if you click around this area, but you have to be careful about that. For example, by default, it shows the surface wind. So you have to use this slider and drag it up. For example, let's say we want to fly around like 5,000 feet, just an example, right? It shows you the wind direction and speed at 5,000 feet level. You can choose your heading based on the wind, because if, for example, the distance between the two VORs that you've chosen are long enough that you will lose VOR reception in between them, you basically have to use dead reckoning method to go to the next waypoint. So obviously, compensating that wind is very important, right? You have to choose the proper heading in order to stay on your track, of course. So that's gonna be very useful to know the wind speed and direction. There is another tool that I use for flight planning and basically observing the weather ahead of us is another website called meteoblue.com. meteoblue is the actual company that provides weather data to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So that's why I use this website alongside with windy.com. Windy is better, to be honest, but because the source of the data is meteoblue, I usually use these two websites side by side to compare what I observe here. If they are in agreement, like let's say the wind directions and speed and the temperatures or cloud coverage, etc., they are in agreement, of course I'm going to keep using windy because it's just a better interface, faster interface. But if they are not in agreement, then I will use meteoblue again, because it's the source of the data. Sometimes meteoblue is kind of delayed. It shows the weather data a couple of hours later. I've experienced that. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens. In those cases, you want to stick with whatever you see on meteoblue, because it will be the case in the simulator, although it's not representing the actual weather that you will experience in real life. But at least you know that once you get to, point whatever ahead of you in the simulator, you know what kind of weather is waiting for you, because the data is coming from meteoblue. Now, if you want to use meteoblue, I should mention that it doesn't have that easy tool of just uploading the KML file. So basically what you need to do is entering the ICAO codes, just finding the airport that you're flying from or flying to. One of the useful things about this website is the ability to make a cross section for you. And that's actually in the legacy weather map of this website, not the modern one. The modern one is very similar to Windy, but Windy is already better. However, this legacy one is very useful. I'll show you, for example, here. Let's say we want to fly from London Heathrow to Paris. Again, because we can't upload that KML file I mentioned into this website, we have to basically draw that line approximately. It doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be accurate. I just want to demonstrate it. So I'm gonna use this CS button cross section. I will click at my departure point, and here, approximately we're gonna fly along this path. And once you reach to the final point, just click on it one more time in order to close this line. And it basically makes a cross section of this entire path. So you have the top-down view. Now you have a cross-sectional view, which is very useful. It'll show you like the temperature. It'll show you the cloud coverage. I mean, strangely today there is no cloud, which usually it's always like cloudy in this area. For example, it shows you the relative humidity, cloud coverage, and then you have wind for all of these different altitudes, from the ground base all the way to like above 14,000 feet. You have precipitation, you have icing, and then you can see like the temperature at different altitudes. See if I can show you somewhere else in the world that actually shows more icing. Let's say somewhere in northern parts. Make a cross section here. There we go. Got a lot of icing here. Basically, the icing starts above 3,200 feet, so you should avoid it. Like if your aircraft is not equipped with the icing equipment, definitely you should avoid that. You have like clouds all from ground level all the way to 14,000 feet. So that's what I mean, like this cross section is actually very useful and I really enjoy it. I wish windy.com also had such a tool. On Windy you have to change the level so you can have different views for different altitudes from top down view, but it doesn't create a cross section. That's why I used these two websites alongside each other in addition to comparing their data. One more thing, one final point about SimBrief. The advantages of filing your flight plan using SimBrief is that if you have Navigraph, they are connected together, so you can import your flight plan here very easily. You just click on flights, you go to new flight from SimBrief, and it's all here. You can choose like a world map. I mean, the world map is not as good as SkyVector. It's just like a generic map. Hopefully Navigraph can bring Jeppesen's VFR charts incorporated. That would be great. But for now, you can have your flight plan here with all of the waypoints selected. You can easily find your nav equipment frequencies or your airport charts in this application. And I'm sure if you already have Navigraph, you are already familiar with these great Jeppesen charts that come with it. But again, if you don't know, that's another video to go through this application. But for now, that's it for today. I hope you find this relatively quick description of how I plan my flights around the world using SkyVector, using SimBrief and windy.com, meteoblue.com and Navigraph, different tools for different reasons. If you liked this video, please hit like, get subscribed so you don't miss future videos. Also, please let me know what you think about this kind of content. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section down below. This is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the skies. This is Arash signing off. Bye bye.